It's got the kind of texture of like a yellow cake or like a butter cake on the edges, but once you get past the kind of crispy bottom and the baked bottom and the baked top, it's chewy. It's not like any kind of cake you've ever had. So if I do an episode that says Japanese butter mochi is completely different from Hawaiian butter mochi, of course that means I need to make Hawaiian butter mochi and show you how that's done. In a bowl, you're going to microwave half a stick of unsalted butter. If you only have salted butter, I don't think it's going to really make a huge difference in this recipe. You don't need to like rush out and just go and get unsalted butter for this particular recipe. And to that, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar. I'm using a Japanese cane sugar today, but you can use any kind of sugar that you have at home. And you're just gonna mix that all together so that all the sugar gets hydrated by the melted butter. Make sure that you get all the sugar out so you're not having like, clumps of buttered sugar lumps later. Now you can use a hand mixer, but I found that especially when you're making a smaller portion like this, you're totally okay just using a regular whisk. And when you get to the next step, you're going to add 2 eggs. You're going to add them one at a time. I think it makes it a little bit easier to mix up that way. And I'm going to add the second egg. So once you have your sugar, butter, and eggs mixed together, I'm going to put that aside just for a little bit, and I'm going to put together our dry ingredients, which is 8 ounces of mochiko flour, which is half a box. So each one of these like small boxes, this is probably the most popular or the most common mochiko brand in the United States, made by Koda Farms. So half a box, which is 8 ounces, and you're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then you're going to combine the mochiko and baking powder, dry mixture, in parts. So you're going to, if you dump this all in at the same time, kind of like if you dump all the eggs at the same time, you're just going to end up with more work that you have to do because it's going to get lumpy first before it kind of smooths back out. So that's why we do this in portions. So we'll do a third. And another third. And the final third. And it'll get stiffer because you haven't added the liquids yet, but it kind of gives you a little bit of an arm workout, and you can also make sure that all the mochiko lumps are worked out. To this we're going to add 6 ounces of evaporated milk and 7 ounces of coconut cream. So most cans in the U.S. are like 12 ounces of evaporated cream and like 13.5 ounces of coconut milk or coconut cream. So in that case, if you're using American cans, it's like half a can of both. and then the coconut milk. And I'm using a coconut cream here, so it's got those kind of luscious lumps of coconut fat. And if you want to make a lighter version of this, you can totally do that using coconut milk rather than coconut cream. The nice thing about mochiko or rice or sweet rice flour is because there's no gluten in it. With regular like cake batters that use regular white wheat flour, you're told not to overmix it because if you overmix it, then it'll make the batter tough or the dough tough. Mochiko or sweet rice flour, glutinous rice flour doesn't have any gluten, so you can kind of be aggressive with the mixing. And then our final ingredient for the mix is going to be a half a teaspoon of vanilla. So then this becomes your butter mochi base. From here you can kind of flavor it as you would like any sort of like a mochi donut flavor or a Western filled mochi flavor as well. You can put matcha powder in here and make matcha butter mochi, which is delicious. You can obviously leave it by itself, which is how we're doing it today. And we're doing a second version where it's like topped with coconut shavings. You can also get the finely shredded coconut and mix it into this batter before you bake it so that every bite that you have has like pieces of shredded coconut in it. I have tried making this. You can't make this with crushed pineapple. It doesn't really set properly in the batter. So if you kind of want to do a hybrid pineapple upside down cake butter mochi, you could put kind of like patted dry. Don't use crushed pineapple, but use like pineapple segments or pieces and put them on the bottom and then put this butter mochi batter on top. I think that would be really delicious. But today we're going to go old school, super simple, and so we're going to divide this batter into two smaller baking dishes. And for one of them, we are leaving it completely alone, so it's just the traditional, just plain coconut cream flavor, so there's still a little bit of the coconut scent, but there's no coconut pieces, butter mochi. And then for the second one, we're actually just going to top some coconut shavings rather than shredded coconut. So yes, I'm going to be putting both of these dishes into a 350-degree oven for 1 hour, and then you're going to let it sit out for about an hour just so it cools down, so that the mochi flour has a chance to kind of rest and not be quite so sticky. It's not going to be nearly as sticky as the Japanese butter mochi, but there's, it's still a mochi flour product, so you do kind of want to let it sit, let the butter kind of like reabsorb after it's gotten all soft and gooey in the oven. So we will check back on this in a couple of hours and we'll do a taste test. These are super tasty, they're super buttery. Kind of cuts like a regular yellow cake. The top layer kind of, flakes like a yellow cake as well. But it is kind of sticky because of the mochi flour. I'll put one piece there. I don't know if you're a edge of the brownie, edge of the cake kind of person, but for mochi cake, the edges get like kind of crispy and they're kind of caramely. So I personally like those. Some people just like, like the super center part where it's just soft. But I like having a little bit of texture difference between like the inside of a mochi cake, which is like soft and chewy, and then a little bit of the extra kind of crunch on the outside. I love that. And while we're here, might as well go ahead and cut a piece of the butter mochi cake with extra Hawaiian flavor with some coconut shavings on top. And you can tell that like if I hadn't let it cool to room temperature, this whole thing would have just fallen apart if I was trying to cut into it because it's just so sticky because of the mochi-ko powder, mochi-ko flour, I guess. To this, because it's a cake, I kind of like to have it just a little bit lighter, so I like adding a couple of berries. I've got some blackberries here and some blueberries. And then just to kind of make it look pretty, you can dust it all with a little powdered sugar. One more here. And dust it all with just a little powdered sugar just to make it look pretty. And this is just for looks. It's not necessary. If you don't have powdered sugar, you don't have to use it. Let me try my favorite part, which is the corner. It's such an interesting cake because, like, say for instance you took some mochi and then you put it inside a cake. It kind of is like that because it's got the kind of texture of like a yellow cake or like a butter cake on the edges, but once you get past the kind of crispy bottom and the baked bottom and the baked top, it's chewy. It's not like any kind of cake you've ever had, but if you like that kind of chewy texture that you get in mochi, it's chewier than like a soft chewy brownie. The butter flavor is so good in this. Oh. Like a blueberry. And actually, if you want to go, that kind of stereotypical Hawaiian route, you could actually just make regular butter mochi and just have maybe either some dried pineapple, some fresh pineapple on the side. That might be really good too. So good. I hope you try making this at home. It is really good. Kids will love it. Adults will love it. I think if you are into that kind of chewy mochi texture, you are not going to hate this at all. You're going to love this. You're going to be obsessed. You're going to try to figure out like all the different kind of other things that you can do with it. Yeah. I'm gonna finish the piece with coconut on it. Try to leave this for friends. Yeah, super, super good.